I think that this is sort of a game where if Washington's going to be something this season, they got to win this game, right? You've got to at least be able to say, okay, our floor is high enough to where we're going to beat one of the worst teams in the NFL. And my matchup that matters, we talked about this last week. I talked about it on the review show. I think I talked about it for the New York Giants when we were doing the Giants preview like 2 weeks ago on this channel. Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau, it's got to be better, man. Like, it just straight up has to be better. And they were non-existent last week. They were totally non-existent against the Minnesota Vikings. Now, it's one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. We said that when we went through the preview show last week. It was going to be a tough test for him, but you pick Kayvon Thibodeau as high as you do for this matchup. You pay Brian Burns what you're paying him for this kinds of matchup. Both those guys, Burns, 5.6% pass rush win percentage? Come on. Thibodeau, 5% pass rush win percentage? We spent the whole offseason saying, oh man, now it's not just Dexter Lawrence anymore. Yes, it is. It's still just Dexter Lawrence. Yeah. And it's just something that it's got to be way, way better. They have a better matchup. Commanders 15th in pass blocking grade in week 1 as a team. But I think that everybody would say they're more vulnerable than an offensive line like the Minnesota Vikings are. So this is another matchup where I said it last week. Let's have them show up. They didn't show up. You got to show up this week. I mean, this is the week that you do it. You're not going to go up against Carolina Panthers every single week. It's the NFL. Right. You're prioritizing these players for a reason, and they got to step up. That is the matchup that matters, because if the Giants can't at least win that one with the stars they brought in to do something like that, I don't know where else this team's winning. So that's a huge matchup to me, because if they don't win there, I don't think they win basically any other position other than
it's a team you're really familiar with, and it's a team that has a lot of turnover on their end though too. So they're not probably going to be. Jane Daniels isn't familiar with the Giants. So it's one of those things you have to, to your point, you have to do it if you want to salvage this season at all. And going along with that, and the Giants not shooting themselves in the foot, except this is offensively now, my matchup that matters are the Giants wide receivers and their hands, because they led the league last week in drops. They had 5 drops in a single game.
Yeah,
I get that Daniel Jones is not playing well, but his receivers are not helping him. And your receiving yards leaders in that game, Malik Neighbors is leading your team, which is a duh. That's what we all thought. They only had 66 yards. And then you have 44 yards for Robinson. Slayton had 26, Johnson 18, Singletary 15. These guys are just non-factors right now. And that's not going to work. They need to be better when it comes to Daniel Jones, and he's throwing catchable balls, and you need to be able to catch them now. So it's a battle against their own hands. Figure out what to do with your hands, guys. You're not Ricky Bobby.
Fantastic reference. The people appreciate it. I'm looking at your plus factor here, and you're going to talk about something in the red zone. I'm funny enough, I'm also talking red zone. Is Cliff Kingsbury kind of?
I figured we'd play off each other here.
Is Cliff Kingsbury kind of cooking in the red zone? That's the question we need to be asking here. Because were there things that the Commanders could have been better with? Yes, absolutely. This past week against the Buccaneers, but they were one of 5 teams that had a 100% red zone success rate. They were 3 for 3 in scoring in the red zone. So, for as much as Cliff, gets criticism about not getting Terry McLaurin the ball and some things that they're still ironing out, played well when it came to the red area and putting up points on the board. So just something to note is Cliff cooking in the red zone? That's my plus factor here. What about yours?
Well, on the other side of things, then it's Shane Bowen in the red zone.
There we go.
Because one of those other teams that was 100% in red zone possessions was the Minnesota Vikings last week. They went 2 for 2 in the red zone. And what worries me especially is that the Giants, you have some really young players in some really key positions when it comes to red area defending. You have Tyler Newman, Drew Phillips in that secondary as rookies. Mm-hmm. You have Darius Mausau. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he's a weak side linebacker. That's all going to be very important when it comes to shutting teams down in the red zone. And what you can scheme up in there that we saw was not very effective last week against Minnesota. So this is your opportunity to be effective this week against a team that was good, that maybe isn't a good team yet, but they certainly had success in the red zone, and you cannot let them do that again, because that is what obviously increases scoring production. And that's all. Like, you could be the worst team in the world, but then score on every single one of your red zone possessions, and 3 of those things, and you could put the game out of reach.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think there's a reason why coaches emphasize it the way that they do. And I think that you're correct in recognizing that on the flip side, like, you got to be able to stop people on the defensive side of the football.